about to experience, Jackson Snyder presents. Direct from the Vero Essene Yahad, a Hebrew Nation radio original program. JSP is a variety show seeking out Jewish and Christian origins, religion, theology and history, and doing so in a fashion that is both educational and entertaining. Welcome to Jackson Snyder Presents.
According to the book of Exodus 25:10 and following, construction of the ark began on Mount Sinai. Have them make an ark of acacia wood, 2.5 cubits long, 1.5 cubits wide, and 1.5 cubits high. Overlay it with pure gold, both inside and out, and make a gold molding around it. Cast 4 gold rings for it, and fasten them to its 4 feet, with 2 rings on one side and 2 rings on the other. Then make poles of acacia wood and overlay them with gold. Insert the poles into rings on the side of the ark to carry it. The poles are to remain in the rings of this ark. They are not to be removed. Then put in the ark the tablets of the covenant law which I will give you, etc. You know the rest. What's interesting about this is that the manufacture of not just the ark but weapons also took place at Mount Sinai. The reason for this is that the Israelites faced a problem in the wilderness, obtaining the skills needed to manufacture bronze weapons. Casting bronze was not easy or a common skill. Exodus is silent when it comes to blacksmiths. One could make the argument that there were no blacksmiths available within the camp. On the other hand, there could have been a few available that didn't have the equipment to produce the much-needed weapons, or they had no skill in forging armaments. So how did the Israelites produce enough weapons, let alone an Ark of Covenant? The answer can be found at Sinai. The reason why Moses led the Israelites into Sinai and to the base of Mount Horeb comes down to his relatives, the availability of copper, and the metal workers who lived there. Moses knew well the area of Sinai and Mount Horeb, which they suppose is an alternative name for Mount Sinai, for Moses used to lead Jethro's flock, quote, to the backside of the desert, and came to the mountain of Elohim, even unto Horeb. Exodus 3:1. Moses' father-in-law, Jethro, was a Kenite Midian priest who lived in the lands of Midian. This is why Moses led the Hebrews to Mount Sinai or Horeb, for he was familiar with the territory and familiar with the resources mined and forged at Sinai. While Moses and a few others with him were familiar with the sights and sounds at Mount Sinai or Horeb, most of the Israelites and those tagging along were not, especially on the morning of the 3rd day. From Exodus 19:16, and it came to pass on the 3rd day in the morning that there were thunders and lightnings and a thick cloud upon the mount, and the voice of the trumpet exceeding loud, so that all the people that was in the camp trembled. While it is possible that Yahweh did descend in a thunderous roar accompanied by spectacular lightning and smoke atop Mount Sinai, perhaps there's another alternative to consider. Perhaps the reported sound of thunder the Israelites heard was none other than the metalsmiths atop the mountain who were smelting and hammering away. The flashes of what appeared to be lightning was nothing more than the flickering of the high flames produced by the furnaces. As for the cloud of smoke, that was caused by the furnaces, as it takes 2 to 4 times as much charcoal to smelt copper as compared to iron, which would produce a heavy cloud of smoke. In all, the mountain landscape would have sounded and appeared eerie to the people below. The clue that links this possibility all together is the Kenites. Very interesting hypothesis. The name Kenite comes from the Hebrew word Cain, which means smith or metal worker. I think it's the same name as the first murderer, Cain. The Kenites lived in an oasis towns in the lands of Midian and Sinai, where they mined the abundant rich copper ore at various spots located in the southwestern and southeastern Sinai. Furthermore, their location at the copper mines was not far from the trade routes that passed through Sinai, which allowed them to sell their goods and purchase the expensive tin needed to produce bronze, which was rare in the Middle East. Because of this, it's possible to suggest that the Ark of the Covenant was designed and the metals collected atop Mount Sinai due to the Kenites who lived and worked within the vicinity. That's really interesting, to equate the Kenites with blacksmiths or metal workers. The reason for the speculation is that Moses was believed to be atop Sinai for 40 days. However, the Bible gives two different accounts as to who partook in the construction of the ark. According to Exodus 31, Moses instructed Bezalel and Aholiab to construct the ark, but the book of Deuteronomy in 10 says Moses constructed it while Bezalel and Aholiab are not mentioned. 40 days allow plenty of time to help in not only the design and manufacture of the weapons, but also the ark, along with other items of religious significance. Therefore, it seems reasonable that Moses knew what he was doing when he arrived at Sinai to pay for the weapons and the ark with the gold they stripped from Egypt. The power of the ark is another intriguing matter. In biblical sources, the ark divided the Jordan River for the Israelites to cross. In another instance, it brought down the walls of Jericho. It is said to have killed the Beth-Samis. Beth-Samis? I don't know that word. Beth-Samis. When they opened it. I know in the one movie it was Nazis that they came out after. The Philistines are said to have acquired hemorrhoids, as shall be explained after capturing the ark, which caused them to quickly return it back to the Israelites. And finally, there's the story of Uzzah, who was struck down for placing his hand on the ark as he tried to prevent it from falling. However, how true are these stories? And if true, is there another explanation worth considering? When somebody does something good in our Facebook group, that is the Yahad think tank, come join us. It's a good group. When they do something good, they get awarded anywhere between 13 and 36 golden emeralds. And you might know that golden emeralds have been found in the rubble of Israel. Got a picture of one. Looks exactly like it was just explained. According to the book of Joshua 3:16, the waters that came down from above stood and rose up upon an heap very far from the city Adam, that is beside Zeratan, and those that came down toward the sea of the plain, even the salt sea, failed and were cut off, and the people passed over right against Jericho." Unquote. So did the Jordan River miraculously divide, allowing them to march across a dry riverbed, or is there more to the story? Earthquakes are common along the Dead Sea Depression and might be the contributing factor to the Jordan splitting for Joshua. In 1927, an earthquake cut off the river for 22 hours. In 1546, an earthquake triggered a landslide that stopped the river from flowing for 2 days. In 1267, the river stopped once again at midnight and would not flow again until 10 o'clock the following morning. While this is plausible, the book of Joshua provides an overlooked possibility. As mentioned, they left Shittim, the ancient city in Moab, now Abel-ez-Zite, Jordan, and encamped on the east bank of the Jordan River. Richard Gabriel points out that there is no sound military reason for the 3-day encampment. From a military standpoint, it makes no sense to sit and wait for 3 days before crossing, considering that the king of Jericho easily could have mustered his forces and acquired the aid of local allies to deploy their forces along the west side of the Jordan River, thus using it as tactical obstacle. However, the king evidently did not have the luxury of allies to assist him in preventing an Israelite crossing of the Jordan. Apparently, the lack of assistance was due to the disunity between the various Canaanite city-states. This is not to say that they could not unite to attack a common foe, but the military and political disunity shows their true weakness in preventing a foreign invasion. While Joshua's decision seems a bit risky, He was no fool. So what were the Israelites doing? The answer is, they were taking advantage of a recent earthquake. And I quote Joshua 3:16 again, that the waters which come down from above stood and rose up upon a heap, very far from the city Adam, that is beside Zeratan, and those that came down toward the sea of the plain, even the salt sea, failed and were cut off. With a natural obstacle in place, the flow of water slowed down and slowly receded, thus making the river shallow enough to build a barrier of some sort to hold back the slow, if not standing, water. Joshua indicates that the Jordan overflowed all his banks all the time of harvest, Joshua 4:2. Knowing that the fords were flooded, Joshua decided that 3 days was sufficient to construct a barrier made of stone to hold back the waters and to allow the army to move fluidly across. Once the army crossed, Joshua gave the order to remove the stones. And I quote, "Take for yourselves from the people 12 men, a man from every tribe, and give them this order. Take 12 stones from the middle of the Jordan riverbed, where the Kohanim are standing, carry them over with you, and set them down in the place where you will camp tonight." Joshua's order to remove the 12 stones indicates that there is no retreat and no surrender. If you want to fulfill the promise, you must fight to the death. Joshua understood well that a force with its back against a wall would fight more ferociously. Moreover, removing the barrier that held back the waters protected those Israelites on the east side of the Jordan if something went wrong. Again, this is part 1 of 2 articles by Cam Ray. And the name of the article is Ark of the Covenant, a weapon, a throne, a temple. Let's go to the second part. It's very intriguing. Some new ideas here. And we continue. According to Joshua 6:1-27, the Israelite army carried the ark around Jericho once a day for 7 days, and on the 7th day they made a tremendous shout, and the walls came tumbling down. This may be partially true, but with a twist. Understand that Joshua was within the vicinity of Jericho, a place called Gilgal. Joshua would have sent spies out to traverse the land and gather intelligence from the locals. One such place was the fortified city of Jericho. Once the spies were inside, they went to an inn. Why an inn, may you ask? Because an inn is where you'll hear all the gossip from the citizens right down to the traveling merchant. It was here that the spies are said to have met with a Canaanite prostitute by the name of Rahab. She informed them much about the city and soldiers that resided within. I would have thought they would go to the hairdressers rather than the inn. And since they saw Rahab there, perhaps it really was a hairdresser's. They wanted to dress this up a little bit and say it was in a hotel. The city of Jericho was not large, roughly 8.5 square acres, 370,000 square feet in circumference, with a population roughly between 2,400 and 2,600 inhabitants. Given the size of the population, the city of Jericho could muster between 500 and 600 men to defend the city walls, which meant roughly every 2.74 meters, that's 9 feet, a soldier would be stationed. Joshua informed the officers that Jericho was shut tight. No one enters or leaves, which suggested that even the local farmers sought refuge behind the walls. This told Joshua that the king of Jericho has not the capability to field an army. While a direct attack will do more harm than good, Joshua takes an indirect approach to overcome the city's defenses. He explained to his officers where the location of Rahab's window is on the city wall. Joshua made it clear to his officers that on the day of the battle, the army, which was roughly between 8,000 and 9,000 men, was to concentrate most of its effort on marching in a column around the city for 6 days in silence. I wonder where they got these demographics, how they know how many people were there and how many were in the army. On the 7th day, the Israelites circled the city for 7 times, and on the 7th circuit, the priests blew their trumpets. The army let out a shout, and the walls came tumbling down. Oh, wasn't that on the Sabbath? However, the walls did not tumble, at least not in the literal sense. Instead, Rahab's inn, after 6 days, would have had at least 35 to 40 armed men hiding in her dwelling. Once those men heard the final blast of the trumpets and the loud shout given by the Israelites, those 35 or 40 men stormed out of Rahab's inn to the walls near the main gate, slaughtered the guards, and opened Jericho to the onslaught. The Israelite army, roughly 8,000 men again, stormed into the city. Some may have used scaling ladders, and once in, quote, they completely destroyed everything in the city with the sword, men and women, young and old, cattle, sheep, and donkeys. Joshua 6:21. All breath had been extinguished, except for Rahab and her family. As one can read, the ark was nothing more than a decoy to keep the people occupied so that the Israelites could acquire the much-needed metals to supply their army. And right there is their hypothesis. I'm drinking shroom coffee. Yum, yum. As the Israelite forces gathered at Ebenezer, the better-equipped and organized Philistines, seeing that their opponent was nothing more than a ragtag, unorganized body of men, left the safety of Aphek and marched toward the Israelites who wished to do battle. Once both armies were in the battle formation, the slaughter commenced. The Philistines are said to have slaughtered 4,000 Israelites that day. The Israelite elders felt that they lost the first engagement due to not having the Ark of the Covenant present at the battle. Because of this, the elders sent messages to Shiloh, located in Ephraim, requesting that Eli's sons, Hophni and Phinehas, bring forth the ark to the battle. Hophni and Phinehas brought the ark to the Israelite camp, where a great roar of excitement was heard. The Israelite forces, confident that their Elohim was with them, went forth to battle against the Philistines the next day and suffered a terrible loss, in which many thousands of men were slaughtered, not to mention women and children. Hophni and Phinehas, they were killed. And worst of all, the Ark of the Covenant was now in the possession of the Philistines. When messengers reached Eli to inform him of the dreadful news, he fell down off his seat and broke his neck. With the Israelite forces broken, the ark captured, and Eli dead, the Philistines quickly overran the Jezreel Valley, gained access to the northern highlands, and were able to overrun the territories of Ephraim and Benjamin, forcing them into tributary status. While the Battle of Aphek Ebenezer was a major Israelite defeat, it was also an indirect victory. I'm going to need to play for you the Shroom Coffee commercial right about now.
Each morning when I get up from my hard little bed, I smell exotic coffee and it goes to my head. I follow in euphoria, I'm singing this song. It's shroom, 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 shroom. Shroom coffee, delicious and free. Shroom coffee, triple roasted, you see. Shroom coffee is named after me. Shroom, 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 shroom. I pour myself a cup and then I sit down to pray. But praying is cut short, it's a wonderful day. My nose distracts my praying and I cannot resist that shroom, 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 shroom. Shroom coffee, red Rishi's the key. Shroom coffee, what coffee should be. Shroom coffee, it's good for the head. It's shroom, 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 shroom.
Yes, my friends, Shroom Coffee is back. Exotic coffees from all over the world. Triple roasted by hand in Vero Yahad, ground fine with a lion's portion of red reishi mushroom for that unforgettable flavor that goes right to your head. Blessed and gladsome days start with Essene coffees, Shroom, Sting, and Cafe Moringa. For more information, go to essenecoffee.com. Have yourself a shroom little day.
It's shroom, 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 shroom.
With the Israelite forces broken, the ark captured, and Eli dead, the Philistines quickly overran the Jezreel Valley, gained access to the northern highlands, and were able to overrun the territories of Ephraim and Benjamin, forcing them into tributary status. While the Battle of Aphek Ebenezer was a major Israelite defeat, it was also an indirect victory. The ark fell into the hands of the Philistines, which they triumphantly brought back to Ashdod. While they celebrated, an invisible hand of death fell on them. According to the Bible, the people of Ashdod and its vicinity were afflicted with mysterious illness. When the Philistines moved the ark to Gath in the hopes of alleviating their ills, death followed. Neither young nor old could escape, according to 1 Samuel 5. But what was this plague, and how did it come about? The Bible mentioned that the plague the Philistines were afflicted with was, again, hemorrhoids, better known to us today as hemorrhoids. However, this seems unlikely. Hemorrhoids don't kill the young and old. Hemorrhoids are not contagious. The Hebrew word used is ophalim, which doesn't mean hemorrhoids, but tumors or swellings. This suggests that the Philistines were suffering from bubonic plague, for the Bible gives another clue, and that is vermin. The Philistines grew tired of the ark and discussed with their holy men how to return the vile object that had been afflicting them for 7 months. The Philistine holy men made it clear that if you wanted to appease the God of Israel, make a guilt offering to him. Then you will be healed, and you will know why his hand has not been lifted from you. The Philistines responded,
What guilt offering should we send him?
The Philistine holy men advised that they should make, quote,
5 gold tumors and 5 gold rats, according to the number of the Philistine rulers, because the same plague has struck both you and your rulers. Make models of the tumors and of the rats that are destroying your country, and give glory to Israel's Elohim.
I concur.
1 Samuel 6:5. Hey, rats and tumors. The passages are clear. The ark produced the plague, and the rats helped in its spread. But how did the ark produce plague? Oh, I would make a guess here. I know it's going to be wrong. This can't be true. Maybe the ark was full of rats. What do you think of that? Maybe the ark was full of rats, infected with bubonic plague fleas. It seems probable the Ark of the Covenant contained more than just a few holy items. Historian Adrien Mayor mentions that the ark may have contained sealed containers or even cloth, quote, that harbored aerosolized plague germs, or an insect vector that infected the rodents in Philistine territory, unquote. In other words, whoever opened the ark to examine the objects within unknowingly opened Pandora's box. After the Philistines had made the 5 golden tumors and 5 gold rats, they placed the objects in a chest next to the ark on the cart which was drawn by 2 oxen. The 5 Philistine rulers escorted them to the border of Beth Shemesh. As the Israelites of Beth Shemesh were harvesting their wheat in the field of Joshua, they looked up and saw the ark. They rejoiced at the sight. It was an indirect victory by means of biological warfare. However, the Israelites would also pay the price. After the Levites had taken the chest and the ark down from the cart, they opened the ark to observe the objects inside and to see if the contents were still there, and in doing so, unknowingly unleashed the same pestilence that afflicted the Philistines. Samuel states that Yahweh smote the men of Beth Shemesh, because they had looked into the ark of Yahweh. Even he smote of them people 50,000 and 70 men. That also is in 1 Samuel 6.
You have been listening to Jackson Snyder Presents on Hebrew Nation Radio.